Welcome to the We Got It podcast,
an MSU sports podcast for everyone.
We're Jonah and Abby,
a husband and wife who's probably a little bit too obsessed with Spartan sports.
And we want to share a little bit of that obsession and joy with you, from casual fans
to die-hard, bleed green fanatics.
And we hope to make following Michigan State athletics more easy, enjoyable, and engaging for everyone.
So go green.
Go white.
Go
state.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the We Got It podcast. We are back with a special bonus episode this week. Similar to what we did for football season, we really want to give you a preview into this basketball season so that you feel like you've got it too. And basketball starts officially on Monday. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm excited.
I always say woohoo when it's basketball season, but I just get so pumped. You know us both, we love all Spartan sports, but our hearts are really behind football and basketball. Probably a little bit more football for you.
I would say a little bit,
yeah. And a little bit more basketball for me. And I think that just comes from, I have so many great memories with my family growing up, just watching basketball and especially listening to basketball on the radio. And so, yeah, it just feels so fun and special to now be doing our own podcast about Spartan basketball, especially for me.
I mean, I've always loved this time of year when we get both football and basketball going around at the same time. But yeah, it means there's a lot to cover. So we decided we'd do a second episode this week to get you guys all ready for basketball season in the midst of this busy football season.
Yes. And before we move on, I want to give a huge shout out again to Spartans Illustrated. The We Got It podcast is an official podcast of Spartans Illustrated. And as I was getting ready for this episode and thinking about basketball season, I definitely went over to Spartans Illustrated to kind of get caught up on what happened in the exhibition game. So it's already been my hub for kind of finding out what's going on with Spartan sports. And we're going to be on there. You can always find our podcast. And there's just so many other great articles, podcasts, videos, just so much great media that you can find there. So definitely check it out. Just as a disclaimer, because I know there are going to be those of you out there who just came off, the rough week last week and are thinking, oh, they're done with football, they're throwing in the towel. No, we are not throwing in the towel when it comes to football. We are still pumped about this season. We love our Spartan dogs on the football field, but it is, like you said, like this glorious time of the year when football and basketball are going on at the same time. And we want to make sure that we're giving basketball its rightful place and giving it its own kind of season preview. So don't go there if you're going there. We love Spartan football and we're going to keep giving you all the great content, but you're going to get basketball too.
Totally.
So when it comes, I've been talking a big talk about how much I love basketball. And obviously we've given you kind of glimpses here and there of, what to kind of expect for the season, new players that are incoming, but I don't feel like I have a great grip on what we're expected to do this season. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of that is because we don't really know what to expect from this team. Unlike last year when there were super lofty expectations going into the year, there aren't really a ton of big expectations about this team. I think there's just a lot of unknowns with the roster, a lot of new faces, big shoes to fill, losing players like Tyson Walker and Malik Hall. So it's going to be a big question. Who's going to fill those shoes? And is that going to be at the same level? Is that going to be at a higher level? So it'll be interesting to see as we get this season rolling, who are some of those players who step up for the Spartans.
I think one of the big unknowns too is our point guard, and not so much of we don't know who our point guard is going to be. I think for the most part, we're going to be relying on Jeremy Fears Jr. to be our main starting point guard. But I feel like when it comes to the style that Tom Izzo coaches, even with Cassius Winston, he wasn't starting very much his freshman year, but we still got good glimpses of what he could do during the season. And with Jeremy being out with such a tragic injury last year, we really didn't get to see him showcased much at all during the season. And so it does almost feel like we have a true freshman point guard coming in, even though he's been around the program for the last year, which definitely has its pros and cons for sure. Do you expect to see Trey Holloman at all at the point guard position too?
I mean, I think at times you'll see him at the point guard, especially off the bench. But he's a guy that's versatile. He can kind of play several different positions. So I don't think they're going to be just relying on him at the point. But I think, I mean, Michigan State does have a lot of guards this year who I think would get minutes at point guard potentially and can handle the ball, which I think is a strength of this team this year.
Just like you were saying with Trey Holloman, he can kind of play a lot of different positions. I kind of feel that way about a lot of guys on the team this year. You know, even in exhibition games, we've had Kohler, who's, you know, traditionally played more of a 5 for us, taking shots from the 3-point line and just like moving things around there. And like you said, we have so many different guards that can kind of flip between that 2 and 3 position. So walk us through, what has the starting lineup been for exhibition games, and do you feel like that's going to be any different for the starting game against Monmouth on Monday?
Yeah, so for both the exhibition games, there was the same starting lineup with Jeremy Fears at the point guard position, Jaden Akins at the 2 guard, Frankie Fiddler, our new transfer forward, then Xavier Booker at the 4 with other transfer Zyman Zapala at the 5.
Okay, so I know nothing about Zapala. Do you know anything about Zapala? How has he looked in exhibition?
Yeah, I mean, he is really a true center that really Michigan State hasn't had in several seasons. Even guys like Carson Cooper or Jackson Kohler are more kind of, I wouldn't say undersized at that position, but not
undersized, I think, in just overall body composition to some extent.
Okay. I think that's a good way of putting it. But Zapala is kind of a true center, 7 feet tall. Which has been a while. Michigan State's had somebody they put out there that's 7 feet tall. Yeah. He's a guy that I wouldn't expect huge like performance in the box score from him, but I think he's a guy that's going to be able to help defend the paint with his size, help with the rebounding that's so important to Tom Izzo team. But I think, too, it's not like he's going to be probably getting all the minutes. They're going to be rotating probably a lot of guys in that 5 position.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's helpful to have a little bit more depth there because, like you said, it's something that it doesn't feel like we've had a lot of depth there or a lot of options. Where is Zapala coming from? Where did he transfer from?
Yeah, so he played 3 years at Utah State.
Okay, so this is his only year of eligibility. Or are we still in the COVID
I don't think so. I think the COVID years have all run out.
Done by now. Okay.
But yeah, he was at Utah State for 3 years. And unlike Frankie Fiddler, where he was a pretty big contributor for his team, Zapala kind of was a guy that got sparing playing time off the bench for Utah State. Okay. So I think with this pickup, Izzo's kind of holding into account his ability to develop being in this system. You know, he can kind of coach up Zapala because it's not like he was dominating his conference at Utah State. Right. He was still kind of on the bench as a role player. So it's interesting to see that right off the bat.
He's having him start.
Right. And I think, too, I wouldn't be surprised if lineups are a little bit different for the opener on Monday against Monmouth. But I think regardless if he's not starting, I think he's going to be getting some pretty good minutes off the bench.
Definitely. And I think, too, just from different things that I've been reading, Tom's been pretty open about in exhibition games. He's just been throwing in some odd lineups because, like you said, this is a really untested team. We've got a mix of, you know, true freshmen that are coming in, Jace Richardson, Kerr Tang, that seem like they've got a lot of talent. But then you've got these veteran players like Jaden Akins. And even it feels weird to say like Jackson Kohler is kind of a veteran player on our team now. I still picture him as a freshman, even though he's a junior now. And then these transfers coming in and Frankie and Simon. So I'm glad that he's playing around with the lineup now. I feel like Tom, and I always trust Tom. I do. But it felt like even last season we were playing with the lineup into February at times. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, if we can play around with it now in exhibition and some of these first kind of hopefully easier open air games against Monmouth and Niagara before we face number one Kansas.
Yeah.
Like hopefully we can get that worked out a little bit more.
Right. I mean, it was encouraging for me, at least after the game this past week against Ferris State. I think one of the lineups I just really haven't liked at all is when both Cooper and Kohler are on the court at the same time, especially
I
when
concur.
Cohen Carr is on the three as
Yes.
well, because you just really have no shooting.
Yeah.
And it just clogs everything up.
Yes.
And Izzo even said that, yeah, I kind of realized that lineup's not gonna work. So that was kind of an encouraging sign, because I feel like at times last year he would run that lineup. So I think it's encouraging, at least now that he's recognizing not the greatest move, maybe.
Yes. Well, and it gives us a little perspective on last season's, because a lot of times that was the lineup we had. We didn't have much beyond Cooper, Kohler. And then, obviously not always would Cohen Carr be in there at the same time, but a lot of times we wanted him to be, and that was kind of like, it felt like the best we can put forward. Whereas this year we've just got so many more options for lineups and really helping create mixes where players' skills complement one another while they're in at the same time.
Totally. So yeah, I think that's one thing that Izzo's going to have a lot of this year is flexibility. I think that's going to be also, though, the challenge is to kind of find the right combination of when to place guys, the right lineups that you can play together to kind of maybe change the pace or give defenses a different look.
And too, that could change across the season as different players' skills grow and develop, and certain guys get better chemistry with other teammates and those sorts of things. And so I think it's a good reminder for me heading into the basketball season just how much complexity goes on into making those sorts of lineup decisions. And I sound like a broken record, but I get very emotionally invested in games. And so it's so hard for me in the moment to be like, oh my gosh, why are we making that substitution change? Or why are we doing things this way? And to have this background as that step back and
right.
Yes, just be able to kind of see the game from the whole picture.
I think talking about the roster, I know we talked about kind of both of the transfers a little bit so far, but talking about some of the freshmen that we think will contribute to this team, starting off with Jace Richardson. If that name sounds familiar to you, that's because he is the son of Spartan great Jason Richardson, a part of the 2000 national championship team. So we got more Spartan blood here on the team. And I think he's the guy that I expect to have a significant impact on the team right off the bat as a freshman.
We have had just a packed team of generational Spartans. I don't know if you can count Nick Sanders, but Michigan,
right?
We love them. And so it's fun to see how much we know how great Tom is always. That's an undisputable fact, even if people want to try to dispute it. He loves his players so much. Clearly, guys that played on the team 25 years ago are wanting their kids to play there even as walk-ons. And I think it just speaks so much to the family mentality at MSU. That's just such a core of the basketball program, but I think MSU athletics as a whole is just really feeling like this is your home. We are your family. And I just think that's really awesome to see that. So tell me a little bit more about Jace Richardson. What kind of a position does he traditionally play? What kind of, strengths and weaknesses do you feel like he has on the court?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a combo guard. So he's a guy that can kind of play a lot of positions on the court. I think he'll have minutes at the point guard. I think he'll probably the bulk of his minutes this year will probably be at the 2 guard position, but he's a athletic guard as well. So he's a guy that's he's shown to be a really good defender so far in the 2 exhibitions, which I think, if you know anything about Tom Izzo, that's going to get you minutes on the court, regardless of what else you bring to the table. And I think, especially as a freshman, if you can play defense, that's going to help you get onto the court early.
Yes.
Offensively, he's been a good shooter for in these exhibition games going back to the ones in Spain. And I
Okay.
think too, like those are two real skill sets that if you can contribute those two things right away as a freshman, like you're going to get a lot of minutes and you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
an important role
Mm.
on this team. I wouldn't expect him to have maybe the ball in his hand a whole lot, kind of taking the lead
Right.
early on. Just, I mean, you have guys like Fears and Holloman who
Absolutely.
can kind of take that load, but
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised as the season goes on. He gets more and more opportunities with the ball,
Mm-hmm.
making things happen on his own and not just maybe being a shooter on offense.
Awesome. So then we also have another true freshman in Kerr Tang, and I know we mentioned him a little bit after, I think it was the Northern game, the
Mm-hmm.
exhibition game, that he was knocking down some threes, which is always fun to see from a new freshman. But tell me a little bit more about him. Was he going to be more traditionally like a 2 or a 3? Where do you see him
Yeah, I
on the
think he
court?
would be kind of more two or three, kind of
Okay.
depending on the lineup.
Mm,
I think he'll definitely get minutes early on. I don't think quite to the level of Jace.
mm,
I think probably he has some catching up to do defensively. And I think just offensively from a skill set perspective, like I think mostly what he's going to bring to the team is shooting
shooting.
and moments that's going to be needed. But I think trusting him with the ball or cutting to the basket and in motion. Like I think some of those things he's going to probably have to learn,
Yeah, and develop. I mean, those aren't things
develop.
that we necessarily expect out of a true freshman, especially the way that Tom recruits. He's not going after the one and done guys, who are going to come play 1 year and then go to the NBA typically. And so I kind of love players like that because it just gets me more excited for next year. I know with basketball, you're constantly on this rotation of focusing on this current season, but then we've also
Mm-hmm.
got guys committing for next season. So you kind of got to keep your brain split and between like, okay, what's going on now and
Yeah,
what to expect
totally.
for next year. So I think even hearing that just makes me excited for this program.
Yeah, I think he'll be a. I think at moments like he'll have some pretty big spots for us,
Mm-hmm.
just like with his ability to knock down from behind the arc, and that's just a skill that any team needs. Especially, I mean, that's an area that Michigan State hasn't been great
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple of years. So having guys on the bench like Holloman, like Kurtang, like Jace Richardson who can come in and shoot is a big asset for Michigan State. I think he'll probably just take a little bit more time to adjust to the college speed, to adjust to playing defense against
Mm-hmm.
Division I athletes.
Yes.
Where I
Which is a
think
huge, huge change from high school.
totally
Absolutely. You're not only just going from, some guys are really able to be on those developmental high school teams. What do you call that?
like prep.
Prep schools,
Yeah,
yeah. And, so you get a little bit more of that higher level competition within high school, but you're making that jump from high school to college, but college to Division I basketball. Big Ten
yeah,
basketball, Big Ten is very well established in how well our basketball teams are
right.
doing. I don't know how else to word it. I'm just like the strength, I
It's
guess.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a high
strength of
level
schedule
conference. Yeah,
in the Big Ten. And so, yeah, that's just a huge thing. I think you see that right away with defense, with freshmen, like just having to cope with that level of intensity and that level of physicality and all that good stuff.
thinking about this year, I know we've talked about some of the newcomers who
Mm.
maybe some of the starters have been. Are there any other players that you're really looking forward to seeing this year? Is there
Well,
like
we all know I'm a fangirl for Jaden Akins. I love
yeah,
Jaden Akins. He's just such a fun player to watch. And I think over the last couple of years has been one of the most consistent players out on the court of just he's going to come in and you know exactly what you're getting from him. Yes, maybe some games he's going to be a little bit hot or a little bit cold, but that's going to happen for everyone. But I just feel like that he's going to come out and give 110% every game. And I haven't always felt that about players that left last year. And so I always love watching Jaden Akins play. I am also just so pumped for Cohen Carr. His dunks just get me pumped up. And I think, as silly as that sounds, that has a huge impact in game. If you
mm,
have someone who can hit alley oop dunks, who can hit, pretty nice dunks in the game, like the Breslin Center, the Izzone's going nuts. So like it just makes such a big difference in the morale of the game and getting
Right.
that momentum going. But I think too, he has so many other skills just beyond that. I think he's really developed a lot in this off season. And then last player that I'm also very excited for is Xavier Booker.
Mm.
I think that he's had huge development. I saw a little clip from him of just saying like, yeah, I really feel like I have so much more to offer this team this year, essentially. Like, I didn't really know what my role was last year, but now I feel very confident that, and he basically like listed every single job on the court that you can have: rebounding, shooting,
Yeah.
driving to the hoop. And it was like, okay, you're here and you're ready to play. Like, you see yourself as a player who can't just do one thing, but you're here to show up for the whole team and do everything that you can. So, yeah, super excited to see
Yeah,
him.
I think those last two guys that you mentioned in Carr and Booker, I think a lot of this team's success will be determined by how big of jumps those two players make from last year, where both of them had big moments.
Mm-hmm.
They had those like this awesome plays that you hope to see as they came in as freshmen, but now kind of as sophomores, more leaders in this team. Booker's likely going to be starting. I think Cohen Carr is going to be one of the first people off the bench. Like, there's a lot more asked of them, and they're not just going to be asked to make a couple highlight plays in the game. Like, I think their development is going to be crucial for this team. So I'm really excited to see how that pans out. I think, like you said, it's nice that we kind of ease into the schedule a little bit this year, get a couple games under our belt.
Ease in. We play like two hopefully super easy teams and then number one Kansas.
Well, I know last year it was...
But normally it's just number one Kansas or number one North Carolina or number one Duke, whatever it is. So,
but yeah, I'm excited. The one thing I do want to mention, and I know you talked about Jaden Akins. I think he's also a guy that his ability to kind of improve his game and develop is really going to be crucial for this team. Obviously, losing a guy like Tyson Walker, who was the guy that you could count on, who if you needed to bucket late in the game or late in the shot clock or to kind of take over to slow things down, like
it was like Tyson's going to make it happen.
And I think that's something that we don't have this year as of now, is like, who is that guy in those moments?
I think it's Jaden Akins.
I hope so, but he just has been, I don't know, in the exhibitions and in the Spain games, he just hasn't necessarily seemed to be like, it hasn't seemed to be clicking with him so far this year. He hasn't been shooting it super well. He's kind of hasn't been super aggressive on offense. I hope that he can kind of take that step and be that guy that you can count on.
We got a little bit of a division over this.
I love Jaden Akins too. I just
I hear what you're saying.
Watching him in the exhibitions, it's kind of been like, man, he hasn't seemed quite be looking like the guy that we're hoping that he'll be this year.
Exhibition is hard. I think you can see potential from exhibition games, but I don't think you can look at exhibition and say, this is how this player is going to perform this season. Especially like you're traveling overseas. It's just a totally different environment. It's not the level of competition you're used to playing. And not that you shouldn't be able to rise above it and do those sorts of things, but I try to take a lot of exhibition with a big grain of salt. So.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm waving the red flag, but more be just like the yellow flag. Like, like...
Whereas I'm over here with like two green flags. Like, yeah,
I was hoping to see a little more from him and kind of the way he improves his game throughout the year. But I think for now, that kind of covers the main points. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot more basketball coming up. Our next episode will be recapping the Monmouth game, kind of seeing what went right, what didn't go right. So excited to be able to kind of not only recap football games, but kind of be recapping these basketball games for you. But I'm excited. It's going to be a fun year, hopefully. Let's keep the tournament streak alive and surprise expectations.
And if you are thinking about turning off this podcast right now, I need you to stop, because we have an incredible We Got It Covered segment that will pretty much probably be the rest of the episode. So do not turn off that YouTube video. Don't pause Spotify. Don't pause Apple Podcasts. Actually, if you want to right now, you can, and go give us a little review, a little subscribe, a little like, a little follow. That seriously goes so far in helping our little podcast reach more
Mhm.
Spartan fans. So if you're pausing it to go do that, that's approved. Otherwise, don't go anywhere. We're very excited for what's next. Well, we are so excited on this We Got It Covered segment to have really the inspiration behind our podcast name and one of our all time favorite Spartans, Mr. Will Tieman. Welcome, sir. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much
you
for being
guys.
here.
It's hard to believe it's already November. It's hard to believe that basketball's about to start. And what was kind of interesting, basketball has a rhythm to it, right? You start, you practice, you have a couple exhibition games, and then you play. Well,
Mm-hmm.
this year has had no rhythm. You started practicing in earnest in August because you went to Spain for 3 games.
Mm.
And then you had that wonderful event for Tom Izzo up in northern Michigan. So now you're pushing your first exhibition game way up. And so at the end of the day, when we finished the exhibition season with Fair State, it was like we've been playing half a year already. And so this opener coming up with Monmouth is welcomed. So then you really do get into a routine. But the Spartan basketball guys have been at it quite a while already.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think it seems, at least on the surface, like a great thing. Like they've been playing some real games for several months now. Do you think, kind of heading into the season, like those additional games in Spain, in addition to the exhibitions, will kind of help them like hit the ground running with the season?
I do, because Michigan State, like a lot of teams right now, have really nice pieces. But what are they? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
we've lost a lot of scoring off our team. And you look around our conference. I mean, if you can name me 2 guys on the Illinois team, good luck. I mean, we have the whole landscape changes. And so what coach has done has been pretty neat. And I think it's going to work. He is not sold out to the portal. He's not
Mm-hmm.
anti-portal. He's not anti-transfers.
Yes.
But he's anti grabbing people that goes over the top of people who have been, as he likes to describe it, have sort of, traditionally earned their spot. And he doesn't want to
Mm.
recruit over the top of them. And so what's going to be fun to watch to see what Commander Izzo does is he's got all these really neat pieces, but what's he going to do with them? He can go big, he can go small. And even when we go big, we're pretty quick. This is a really quick team.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to emerge as the go-to guy to score? I don't know. Find out, I guess, right? But I think going into this one with the 5 games, it was really good for this team because it's just a work in progress. And I will regress for a second. The game we played at Northern Michigan was kind of a game because while it was 40 minutes long and we kept score and all that, the truth was it was all about Tom Izzo coming home.
Mm-hmm.
As it
Northern,
should be.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, Northern Michigan, in honor of Tom, retired his number at Northern Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
number 10. And only the third number, by the way, they retired in the history of that whole program. They had this
Wow.
outstanding dinner for him Saturday night before the game. And and it was neat because of all the people that came back, former teammates, coaches, and then there was this game. So we were trying to figure out at what point would Coach Izzo lose it, because it was a pretty emotional moment, right?
Uh-huh.
In the, I was sure it was going to happen during the dinner because there are
Mm.
all these great stories, and then he gets up to talk, and he held it together. He did really good. Okay, so now it's game time. It's Saturday, and so I said to Matt Stinging, my partner, I said, Matt, what half is he going to lose it? There's just too much going on here. This is going to get him.
Yes.
Matt says, I think maybe the second half. I don't know. I'll say first half. So we're in warm-ups. And I look across the way, and there's Tom sitting on the bench by himself, and his head drops. And you know what happened? All the emotion of all this hit him at once. He didn't even make it to tip off. So it was just great. And the people in Northern Michigan, I'm just telling you, hit a home run with what they did. It was unbelievable. And Rick Comley, our old hockey coach, is their athletic director. Yeah,
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until we started getting ready. And Rick, who's retired or was, just moved back to Marquette because he coached at Northern Michigan, took them to a national title in hockey like us. And the AD got another job, and they just asked him, can you help us out for a little bit until we find a person? Well, that was 3 years ago. So I guess he's their person. But it was just a great event. And I'm excited about actually playing real games now. And something to watch for. I mean, he's had a lot of combinations. And in our post-game interview after the Ferris State game, he said, okay, I'm whittling this thing down to 8 for the Monmouth game. I'm going to get a rotation. I will tell you, I've hung out with him for a lot of years now, and I've never known us to cut down our rotation this quickly.
But, that's really interesting.
That's very surprising.
Yeah, and it was interesting. In the post game, he kind of did like a report card on what he was thinking. And
I love it.
And so and there was a little sincerity in his voice there. So I think when this game is still a game, and it's got the possibility of maybe us, I hope we sort of walk away from him a little bit. But when we're really playing in earnest, I think he's got in his mind now what he's going to do, and I think we're going to see it, because even though this schedule is not as daunting as some we've had, we still have a couple games, and then we got Kansas.
Yes,
And I've not asked Tom about the Kansas game, but I don't have to. He wants to be ready to play Kansas and win.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's why he's saying, I'm going to get my guys organized right away.
Right. So thinking about the first game on Monday, what year is this for you, being the voice of Spartan basketball?
It's pretty interesting for a guy who signed a 5-year contract a long time ago, and when asked by my family how long I thought it would last, I said 5 years. And this is number 28.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Fantastic.
If you could, I'm at home right now, and to over here to my right, I have a jersey with my name on it, and they gave it to me at the end of the 25th regular season. And it was like everybody in the world knew about it but me. I had no idea. And so we were courtside in those days, and we're playing Maryland. They're out warming up. And one of the guys said, hey, follow me. And I go, what are you talking about? And they said, just for once, shut up and follow me. Okay. So next thing I know, I am on the floor, and I have no idea why. All I know is I'm standing on the floor looking at 15,000 people and Maryland warming up, just sort of looking stupid because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, what they did was they did a little announcement kind of thing and some clips. Gave me this jersey, and that was really fun. And I got an autographed basketball from Tom Izzo. My first ever autographed basketball from Tom Izzo. It only took me 25 years to get it, but I got one. And
so you're saying there's no hope for us?
There might be more hope for you guys than me. But it was interesting. 25 years seemed like a lot. And then going into 28, be honest with you, it doesn't even seem possible.
Yeah.
Because you don't. I mean, I didn't know it was 25 to be honest with you. Other people were counting it up, but it's a year-round thing that you're involved in, and when you think about it, for me, I think every person who's in any profession gets to a point where they have to make a decision. Am I going to go this way with it or that way?
Mm-hmm.
And prior to my time at Michigan State, had done a lot of network things, and and, it, and it's nice to do, say, network radio. It's kind of cool, right? You get to go to neat places,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, when your game is over, it's over. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more fun to be part of something.
Yeah.
Now, with that comes great joy and a little heartbreak,
Yes.
Yeah.
but you're vested in it, and I think that's what makes the time go so fast because you're just immersed
Mm-hmm.
in it. And
Mm.
28 years, I mean, we have managers on the team that tell me they listen to me with their dad in a car, and that doesn't make you feel young, but it's been a while. And I will say this: when it comes to basketball, if you are in the family, you're
Mm-hmm.
in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so in our world, working with Tom Izzo has been amazing. He
Mm.
hasn't yelled at me too much later. You should never yell at your elders. But it in our world, he has given us incredible access to their scouts,
Mm.
viewing practice, team meetings, great video things to study. So if we sort of goof a game up, it's not because they haven't tried to help us.
Mm.
Mm.
And it's been amazing, this journey. And I got to tell you, I would have never guessed it. It when I got a call to visit with, in those days, George Perlis, um, it never dawned on me this thing would turn into what it did. It just,
Mm.
in the he got it thing, I'm still not sure where that came from, but it did, and it's there.
Well, that's a fantastic segue. So I don't know if your staff told you this, but I kind of alluded to it. You are the inspiration behind the name for this podcast of We Got It. You know, our goal of really helping Spartan fans of all different, experience levels feel like they've got it too when it comes to sports. But I was one of those kids sitting in the car listening to you call games with my dad. And actually, we never had cable TV growing up. And so, pretty much all my memories of Spartan basketball, and I think part of the reason why I love the game and understand it so well is because I could visualize what was happening on the court because of your beautiful play by play. I
No,
mean,
thanks.
truly, it's still one of my favorite things to listen to. And I almost feel like I understand what's going on in the game better when I'm listening to it. But yeah, we never had cable TV. So we'd
Wow.
always, my whole family, be a lot of times sitting in the kitchen listening to you. And even when we did have, games that were maybe on ABC or NBC, oftentimes my dad would get so frustrated with the TV announcers that he'd go and mute the TV and then go turn you on the
Oh, that's
radio
fun.
because he was like, I'm listening to Will.
That's
And so, when it came to thinking about our podcast and what we wanted to name it, your voice was just constantly in my head, and that iconic "He Got It" call. So I just wanted to ask you more about that. Do you remember? It doesn't sound like it. Like when you first started using that, or did you make kind of a conscious decision to say, "Hey, this is going to be a key call
no.
that I make," or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, and we've gone back to listen to some old games, trying to go.
I love
You
that.
might hear one here or
Mm,
there,
mm,
and we really don't know when it got its own life. But I can tell you,
Mm.
I almost stopped doing it. I was at a grocery store one day, and I was asked to just pick up a couple things, right? So I'm coming around aisle 4, and this guy sees me, and he screams, "He got it!" Scared the hell out of me, almost dropped all my stuff, and I got home, and I said, "That he got a thing. I got to quit doing that."
Oh no!
And
I'm so glad you did
yeah,
it.
and I said, because people are making fun of me, and my
Mm,
wife goes, "Are you an idiot? It's the best thing you've ever done." And
yes.
so it continued to to go along. And this was a funny story from our Northern Michigan game. They took their football stadium and with a limited staff tried to convert it to a basketball arena, right?
Yes.
And these people did an amazing job, but there were problems, and so it's game time, and we were all set to go, and somebody decided to undo something. So now we've got problems, and these folks are feverishly trying to fix it. And so the game is going on, and we're really worrying about being on the air maybe a little bit more than who's making a jump shot at that moment, because it was a little dicey early on. And so one of our guys makes a three, okay? And I don't say he got it. I acknowledge the shot. And Stinging looked at me like, what? And then our studio producer was in my ear. Are you okay?
Oh no!
So I mean, sorry guys, but
I missed one out of all these years.
It's early. I'll get there, but it's
an exhibition for you too.
Yes, exactly.
It was, but it's become a thing that it just sort of happened, and we've had a lot of fun with it. But it's interesting because it really does punctuate a great long distance shot.
Yes.
And it's most fun when you can get in front of it, when the guy is set for the three, you can kind of track it as it's going. And then sometimes it's no, he didn't have it. No, not this time.
And I think that's one of my favorite parts of listening. We talked about this, I think, in one of our first episodes, is that moment, that pause between, again, how well you set it up. You know that the guy's set and taking the shot, and it's that moment of anticipation of waiting for the he got it. And, doing that fist pump afterwards of being so excited. And I think when I think about Spartan basketball, I think about that pause in that moment.
And I'm waiting just like you are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is it going to go? Is it not going to go? But one of the things we tried to do, everybody has their people they look up to or idols, and I've never done much baseball, and I've never met this guy, and of course he's passed away now, Ben Scully. I'm from Cincinnati, which means we don't know anything about hockey. I mean, how can hockey be a sport? It doesn't have a ball, right? and Doc Emmerich, who's now retired, arguably the greatest hockey announcer of all time. But the one thing these two people have in common, even though baseball and hockey are nothing alike, right? What these two people did, they humanized the game. Because it really is people playing the game. It's not a bunch of stats. Now we need numbers that kind of paints a little picture of things. But I've never known two people that could, especially Doc Emmerich in hockey, how as crazy as hockey is, can find moments to humanize things. And I've often thought, and Matt Stingen agrees with me, that there's more to the game than Joe Smith is an 80% free throw shooter. Because Joe Smith has a story, and everybody on our team has a story. Now, you don't tell all the stories every day, but they fit in sometimes. And so you're working all the time. I've had people ask me, how long does it take to get ready for a game? The truth is, you're working on getting ready for a game 24/7. I mean, on the Monmouth game coming up, I can't tell you that I've been dreaming about them and their 7-foot center or whatever. But I've been processing how the practice is going. What is Izzo really going to do? I know a little bit about them, so what's important for me to present about them? What's most important to talk about with us? And so you're always thinking about these things, and and you make little notes. But at the end of the day, a basketball broadcast is an organized ad lib. It really is.
Yeah.
And here's the only time it gets discouraging. If you have a bad broadcast position and the visiting team comes out with jerseys where you can't see the numbers.
Oh, I can't
And
imagine.
that was Fair State, the one we just did. They came out, and I was so excited because they shared information with them. We were ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you look out there in 22, 3, and 4, can't see the numbers.
Oh.
And they're all similar looking guys. And you're like, great. So then you're trying to figure out, okay, hey, that guy's got a knee brace. I know who that is. And then you start looking for how guys comb their hair to identify them. So that gets a little crazy. But
that's got to be so much to internalize in the moment and then immediately, be able to spit back out and keep that straight. That is wild.
You cheat. You if you don't know who's actually shooting the ball, even though you've studied it, sometimes you just go, they shot the ball.
I love it.
But it's interesting. I know I'm hopping all over the place here, but
this is fantastic.
But there's a lot of
that actually was one of the big things I was going to ask is how you do stay organized during games, because that's something I think we've always both been amazed by, is your ability to, even if you have a color commentator with you, you are oftentimes helping tell the story while you're giving play-by-play and helping humanize the players like that. And I think that's something that's so important to us. Like, these are student athletes. And so I think that's just so important. Like you said, it's really easy as fans to, only focus on the heartbreak or only focus on the stats and lose who those people are. And I think that's just something that you do so well. So how do you, organize that ad lib during the game?
It's interesting. Obviously, we're all kind of computer savvy, right? That's our world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I found for me is I came up with a system that would help me just know things, have things stick in my head, because you don't have time to look at your notes in a basketball game. Football is kind of cool. It starts and stops. You got a moment.
Yes.
Basketball, especially our basketball, doesn't stop and start. It just flows. And so what I do, and some of my contemporaries kid me a little bit about it, but I take a pad of paper, for example. I'll show you one. There you go. See that? It's a pad of paper.
I do.
and so I look at that as my canvas. And so this is from the Fair State game. And in essence, I go down and I systematically put information on it. And the reason why I write it is not that I couldn't do the same thing on my laptop. It helps me remember it if I write it out. And so what it's forced me to do, though, is write a little more legibly, because I could be a doctor if you just went by signatures. But it's that's how I go about it, and that helps a lot. And it's really important. And if you can have a moment of a little tranquility before the broadcast starts, and look at this thing just one more time and clear your brain, that helps a lot.
I bet.
And then also helps when the games mean something. You tend to remember more when the game means more. I don't understand that, but I've also learned when we play Michigan, for example, or when we're playing for a Big Ten title, I've learned the hard way, don't do too much. Because your tendency is, this is a big game, I got to do more. No.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's still a game, right?
Yes.
And
right.
And but you want to be up to the task, that's for sure. And wouldn't it be fun to have another championship run here? Just for the heck of it.
I know.
Absolutely. We're hoping. Great. Always hoping.
But think about what Izzo has done. This is year number 30 as a head coach.
Yeah.
And so it didn't count as over a decade as an assistant coach. But if you take a look at the landscape of college sports, and it's been a little up and down, right? we have been fairly consistent of not having issues. Our
Mm-hmm.
basketball program just keeps operating without issues.
Yep.
Our issues are the issues you should have. Did we play well? Did we not play well?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to covering up problems.
Yes.
Izzo has been determined to run a clean program and do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And we have reunions where hundreds of people come back from all over the country. Well, they come back because their experience with Tom Izzo, which it's not always great because he can be a little testy, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, all these guys know he's always had their backs, and they come back. Number one, to see their buddies, right? But they come back because this was an important time in their life, and it was a good time. And we're getting ready for a tournament game, and my counterpart came up to me before the game, and he goes, "I'm really jealous of you." And I'm going, "Okay, this has got to be good, right?" He said, "Well, what I'm jealous about is," he said, "you guys do it right, and you get to represent a program that does it right."
Mm.
Well, I do, and I'm really proud of that. In his world, he didn't have that, and it bothered me. And it's amazing in a world where there are some ethics, but not universal ethics. I couldn't believe he came over and said that. It was something. I felt really good about it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we beat him to boot. How about that?
That helps.
That always helps.
Put him out of his misery.
It truly does, I think, just speak volumes about who Tom Izzo is as a person and just the basketball program as a whole. That, like you said, he's been, a head and assistant coach for over 30 years and just had he's really just such a good program.
It's just he came up with before COVID, we used to have a big dinner before Midnight Madness. And it would be parents, players, staff, some former players, but he would always say, "Okay, we're done now, but before everybody leaves, go find somebody you don't know and introduce yourself." Think about that one little dynamic. It's easy for us to go to somebody we know. He's saying go up to somebody you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that, and to this day I still do it. If there's a new person with our program, or there's somebody in the room that we're working with and I don't know him, I used to just nod, and now I walk up and introduce myself.
Yeah.
That way, you're just not this familiar face. You actually have a name and everything. And the first time he said that, Cassius Winston was, I think, a freshman on our basketball team. So the first guy I saw that I really didn't know was his dad.
Okay.
And I go, "Hi, I'm Will. I'm one of the radio guys. I'm guessing you're Cassius's dad," because they look alike. And so that's the first time I did that. And to this day, him and his wife will come to a game now and then just because. And we chuckle to this day how I kind of stumbled into my introduction with him. But it's a family thing, and it's a cool and it's a cool family. And when people leave our program, like grad assistants or people that go to other programs, they all have the same reaction, and that is, there's probably no place quite like our place. And that's a reflection of Tom. And and like all families, you have your moments, but if you're in, you're in. And I'm glad he let me in. That's kind of a fun thing. Hate to do the games from the parking lot. That would be bad.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he lets you into the games, for sure.
Oh, that's totally something that's always stood out to me about the program as a whole. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but during grind week when a lot of the former players came back. And I think it was cool for me, at least, to see a couple guys come back who didn't necessarily have the happiest of endings when they were left the program. But to still have it had that much of an impact on them to want to come back and see their former teammates, see coach, invest in the current team. I think, yeah, like, I don't know. I guess I'm not as invested or plugged in around the country, but I feel like that environment is pretty unique to Michigan State.
It is. And without naming names, I have been surprised in a good way over time. Like you said, not everybody leaves feeling good about things.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's time player with coach Izzo has been harmonious, because with youth comes rebellion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the belief that you know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what can this guy know? I know everything. But it's been interesting for me at times to see people that have battled with him. It didn't end as well as you would like it, and come back. I mean, years later,
Mm-hmm.
10, 12 years later, just walk in the door like it was yesterday. And the last time I saw, I was surprised to see this person. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I've come to apologize."
Wow.
He said, "Is coach in there?" I go, "Yeah, he's in there. He's going to come out and do the radio thing. But if you want me to step aside, I will." And he literally made a track back to East Lansing to tell Tom that he was wrong. And he should have listened more.
Wow.
So you're like, whoa, that's powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just speaks volumes even more to, I think, who Tom is. That's really remarkable.
And so
Yeah.
it was neat that both of them were able to do that together.
Definitely.
And you see some crazy things.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So speaking, maybe we got a couple more questions for you if you're open to it.
I'm in.
Speaking of maybe some crazy things, what is one of your favorite moments that you have called across the years, or a moment that really just sticks out to you as one of your favorite calls?
Maybe this could be recency bias, because who knows? We've had so many, right?
Yes.
I mean, we were joking before we started. All broadcasts sound pretty good when you keep winning. Winning is good. Winning makes everything sound good. But I really enjoyed when we beat Duke in the Elite Eight in 19.
Yeah.
And I am not a psychic, and I didn't foresee a former walk-on making a jump shot over the best player in college basketball to win.
Yeah.
But I did call home before the game, and I said, "We're going to beat Duke." And they're like, and I said, "I'm telling you, here's why we're going to beat Duke. Number one, that team, they didn't care if we were playing a high schooler. They didn't care who we're playing. The name on the jersey did not affect those people whatsoever." But the other thing was, and this is not a slam on Duke, this is just human nature. We had a very tight group as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that team was about, we'd like to win the game. That's it. That was their goal. It wasn't stat sheets. They only cared about one number, the final score. That was it.
Yes.
And if you look at that Duke team that year, they had a whole bunch of NBA draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense tells you that a lot of those guys were coming out, and you want good numbers on the big stage, which means the best player doesn't always touch the ball all the way down, because I'm going to take my shot. I got to get a couple shots off, man. I can't sit not getting double digits. There's pro guys watching me. And I just felt, and by the way, this is not a slam on Duke. It's one of the greatest programs of all time. But human nature just told me there'd be enough selfishness that they would have the wrong guy taking the shot just enough to open the door for us. Which gets me to one of my favorite plays. Okay. When you got Tillman on the side, just got to get the ball in and hope when he gets the ball in this case, he was going to throw it to Cassius Winston.
Yes.
To hope that they don't foul him. And to think of all the time is spent studying and whatever. Those two have a wink and a nod, and everybody knows Cash is going that way. And all of a sudden he goes that way.
Yes.
And watching the Duke guys chasing him to try to foul him, and they couldn't catch him.
I know.
One of my all-time favorite moments. Yeah. First, the Kenny Goins shot over Zion Williamson, and then the dribble out by Cassius. My entire family always gets together. We all live kind of all over the U.S. We all get together at one of my siblings' houses, usually for the first weekend of March Madness, but that year it was the second weekend, and we usually take off like Thursday through Sunday, and we watch all the games together. And so me and my 5 siblings and my nieces and nephews and my parents were all packed, or my 4 siblings, the 5 of us were packed in the room, and we were all, I can't believe my brother's house was still standing as Cassius dribbled that ball out. I mean, we were jumping up and down and screaming and hugging each other. And
it was
one of my favorite moments.
I know. Too. I can still just close my eyes and see like Cassius arching his back, kind of with a smile on his face, as Zion just kind of tries to swipe at him, but has no chance at getting him.
And, and so that was one. Of course, the Corey Lucius shot at the buzzer to beat Maryland. That whole sequence, it's hard not to remember that one. I mean, think about it.
Yes.
When you're doing a game, your brain is telling you think you know what's about to happen. In that sequence, it was such a tight game. When Draymond Green made this one basket with, 30-some seconds to go, I thought that was the winner. And Maryland had a star player, so you knew he was going to take the shot. And I just didn't think he was going to make it. Well, he took it and he made it. And it's funny how a game can slow down for you. So you're at 6 seconds roughly. And here comes Green flying down the court. Izzo is ready to call timeout, but he doesn't, which set up one of the great finishes of all time, which was Green to Lucius. Lucius top the circle 3, we win. And just for fun, Delvon Rowe had to duck so the pass didn't get interrupted to Lucius, who's only playing in the game because somebody got hurt. And you remember the sequence of that. And when Delvon Rowe actually ducked so Corey could catch the ball, I was so focused on him, I didn't notice that Delvon ducked. It really wasn't until I got home and looked at a couple clips of the game, I went, holy cow. If he doesn't have the presence to duck, probably don't win the game.
Yeah.
But that was those are 2 really magic moments. And the other one, that didn't win us a game, didn't get us to a Final Four, Steven Izzo making a basket.
Yes.
Steven Izzo can shoot the basketball. I mean, he can shoot. And you're sitting there going, he's had all these opportunities to make a basket. Well, when he went in that game where he scored, that team decided, and they kind of knew what was going on. They guarded him like he was an All-American. They were not going to let him score. And when that crazy shot went up and in, number one, you're not expecting it. And when it goes in, everybody went nuts at the same time.
Absolutely.
So those are 3 that really stand out. And there are a lot of others, but those 3. But
totally.
But when Steven made that basket, you would have thought we just won the national championship.
Yes, absolutely. The way the Izzone just exploded was so fun.
Yeah.
And that's what makes sports good. I mean, we were talking about their stories. It's more than just stats. That was just a basket. We've seen hundreds of baskets, but it was more than just a basket.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
anyway, that was those are three that they just jump out.
Right. No, that's
Thank you for
awesome.
sharing
Yeah.
that with us. They're definitely moments that I think stick out to us too. So I love that they're some of your favorite moments too.
Well, we all have, a good moment's a good moment, right?
Yes.
And I've talked to a couple of announcers about big moments, and at the end of the day, we all kind of share the same thought. We really have nothing to do with it. We're just trying to get out of the way of it. You know what I mean? Just sort of relay it, describe it. But at the end of the day, we're just really sort of riding the back of people that work really hard and do some great things. And
Mm.
it is fun to hang out with them a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not a place to be, though, if you want to feel tall. Everybody,
That's fair.
yeah, it's like everybody
Well, you
seems to
have you
be
have
getting,
Tom you can stand next to.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, but it's like, God, you guys are tall. But
Yes.
they don't look as
We've,
tall when they're all together because they're all tall. It's when you
yes.
walk into the bus, you go,
Right.
ooh, they're tall. And then
Yes.
the other moment that I'll never forget, and this is not a happy moment, when we were loading, this is during the COVID shutdown,
Hmm.
when we were playing as well as I've ever seen us play.
Mm.
We knew we were going to Indy for the Big Ten tournament, and we knew there'd be no fans. We knew that.
Mm.
And there was no doubt in my mind that we were about to win the next 9 games we were going to play. We were going to win the tournament. There's 3. And we were going to win the national championship. That's 6 more.
Mm-hmm.
Our last practice, I've never seen us look so sharp, so good. And we're loading the bus. We're going. And then we're unloading the bus.
Mm.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
And so
That's
when everybody
true.
says, go home, it's over. Well, what does that mean? It's over. Go home. It's over. We're done. We're shutting down everything. And that was an interesting moment to watch a whole group of people just stand there
Mm.
and nobody really knew what to do. And behind me on one of my shelves is one of these things here, right? And it's my little pads of paper getting ready for our first Big Ten tournament game that we never played. So it's sitting right up there. And every now and then I look at it and go, oh, God,
Yes.
that team was good. And it was good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was the best team in all the land, I thought.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So in that moment, because I've obviously having won the Big Ten, we didn't play until Friday of the tournament. So the team was still in East Lansing
Yeah, it was
at
Thursday.
that moment.
It was Thursday.
Wow.
And they had played the one game. I never forget, Richard Pitino was still the head basketball coach in Minnesota. So they had made the decision the tournament would continue at that point without fans. Okay?
Mm.
And so I don't know who Minnesota beat, but they're talking to Coach Pitino, and they go, "What's it going to be like playing in front of no people?" And he goes, "Did you forget where I came from?" He was like Florida International or something. We never had people. They're
Yes.
right at home. I thought
Yeah.
he was pretty funny on that one.
Yes, that's
But
a good one. I love it.
and I mean, and when they finally, literally called it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you're on the floor warming up for a game. Um, and I was talking to the Michigan radio guys after the fact. I mean, they literally had gone through the whole pregame, everything. I mean, they're getting ready for tip off.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, officials come up to them and say, you have to evacuate the building right now. And they're like, wait a minute, we're on the air. No, you're not. Get off the air. You got to get out of the building.
Wild.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. So that's not the greatest memory, but it's one I'll never forget. That's for sure.
Definitely. And just, yeah, it just shows you talked about how the landscape has changed so much in basketball. I mean, that was just a curveball nobody saw
Nobody.
coming. And so,
Who would have
yeah.
guessed? Nobody. I was dumb
Yeah.
Right.
enough to think it'd be over in a couple months, couple weeks, whatever, you know?
I think everyone
Yeah.
was.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. We were still holding out hope even when they canceled the Big Ten tournament. It was like, okay, but the NCAA tournament's still going to go on. We're going to get this settled by next week. It's going to be
Yeah,
fine. And
they're not going to
definitely,
shut this down.
I know.
exactly. Yeah, felt that heartbreak just as fans. I can't imagine, being so close with the team and invested, especially in a year where it felt
Oh,
like you said, we've got these next 9
we've got
games to
them.
just
And
have that ripped away.
so, but
So hard.
that's why you take advantage of every opportunity. You don't get many
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So anyway, what else you got?
Well, we've just been so enjoying having you
Yeah.
on today. This has been so awesome for us. Jonah, is there anything else you want to ask?
I don't know if specifically. It's been awesome. Yeah, just hearing your stories
I feel
and
like we could talk with you for hours.
your perspective on moments that I have memories of, and to
Yes.
hear your memories of them as well, or hearing how some of the moments that stick out to you or some of the same ones that stick out to me. It's kind of cool that you're an observer too. It's not like
Yeah.
you're somehow outside
Yeah.
of the moments. Like you're watching those happen with a lot of us and like experiencing those, and we get to kind of hear your reactions and your
Mhm.
emotions and your response to those.
It,
And that's it's pretty much my whole life has been those moments. So it's been
Yes.
cool to be able to
and
hear those directly from you.
in what's interesting with our expansion, and I'm just talking basketball, with our 4 new members, uh, one of the hard things about the Big Ten is there's some great fan bases. So when we show up, well, number one, we're pretty good. And number two, it's Tom, right? People want to see Coach Izzo. So we're used to playing in front of full houses everywhere we go. But the fan base in the Big Ten is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I told our guys, we're going to go play at Southern Cal. There might be less people there for their game than come to the Breslin Center to watch our women play. And I think as our new members come into the Big Ten, they're going to find out how difficult it is to win in the Big Ten, especially on the
Yes,
road. It is really hard. And
absolutely.
because it's just, God, we got just great fans everywhere. And,
Yeah.
and so it'll be fun to see. I do know this. In February, I get 5 days in Los Angeles. That could be
Hey,
good.
that's not bad.
We're
Yes,
Yeah,
going to play like
absolutely.
Southern
absolutely.
Cal and UCLA. And I'm thinking,
Yes.
5 days. And if it snows, I don't have to shovel anything.
Yeah,
I think
I
I
Exactly.
can.
I
love it.
love
I
it.
think I can do this.
A good
Yes.
escape.
But it's gonna be fun to see how it all plays out. But I'm jacked about the upcoming season, and
Yeah.
there's always an
Yeah, we are
excitement
too.
because there's no expectation here for us because
Mm-hmm.
nobody
Hmm.
knows, and it'll be fun to
Yes.
carve our own little story out. It's good.
Yeah, it
Right.
is kind of liberating to have that this year of not going in with a rank or a certain
Yeah,
expectation and just see what this team can do.
Hmm.
and I said this just looks like a good group to me. It just does.
Yes.
It just does. So I'm pretty optimistic. And it's always fun to have people say, well, you don't have this. Well, okay, but we got that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
sometimes the best thing is don't say anything. Just go win and go home. Wave at
Yes.
everybody and say, nice seeing you. And
I love it.
but Izzo, one other thing here, he is, I think it's 11 wins away, conference wins, of becoming the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten for conference games.
Mm.
He's already the all-time winningest coach at a school in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
He trails Bobby Knight by right now 10 games, I think. So when he gets the 11th, that's pretty monumental. I mean,
Yes.
think about all the great coaches, and you can sit back hopefully soon and go, nobody's won more Big Ten games than I have. Now,
Yeah.
he won't look at it that way, but I can. I think it's a pretty
Yes.
big
Uh-huh.
deal because he won't be
Absolutely
worrying
is.
about the 11. He'll be worrying about the one after that, and the
Right.
one
Mm-hmm.
after that, and one after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think the consistency and how he's conducted this program is it's pretty amazing. And I just kind of landed in basketball heaven. I'm like, whoa, here I am. It's awesome.
I love it.
And And here I am still drawing on pieces of paper. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you guys could have me. I hope the stories were good, but there's
Absolutely.
just so many. But it's a great place to be, and it's fun to be part of something special. It just is.
Absolutely.
Makes it easy to be a Spartan fan.
It does. It does.
Yes. Yes. Well, we just want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining the We Got It podcast today.
Yeah.
Thank you for being the inspiration behind our name and just helping us reach more and more Spartan fans and help them feel like they really can be invested in Spartan sports and be part of that Spartan family that we've talked so much about today. So thank you for joining us.
Well, you're welcome.
So much to us.
And I never thought I'd be an inspiration to much of anything. Look at this. This is good, right?
You should feel it. Soak it
There you
up.
go.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, it was
If
great
you
meeting
could,
you.
yes, absolutely. We'd love to close out this episode. We usually do our traditional go green, go white, go state. Do you want to close that out with us?
Sure.
Go green.
Go white.
Go State.